Back to the booth here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. Lunch is behind us, my friends, and we are all business all the time now from here on out. My name's Riley Knight. I'm joined by Paul Cheon. Humph is beside me, and I tell you what, things are heating up in the feature match area. It is time for Modern. Players are seated and in readiness, so let's head down to the feature match area. It's time for the next round here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. Hello, my friends, and welcome to live coverage of Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan, coming at you from Bilbao, Spain. My name's Riley. I'm joined by Paul Cheon out of R&D from Wizards. Paul, great to have you along today. In the feature match area, we do have a very special one lined up. Yuuya Watanabe is going up against a Pro Tour champion, Antonio Del Moral León. You've got all the facts about the decks, Paul. What are we looking at this round?
All right, well, we got Antonio on... If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Still on an Is It deck, but a slightly different approach because, of course, Splinter Twin is banned. So he is playing blue-red Through the Breach.
Yes, Del Moral León has been known for his proclivity to play decks like these in the past. Of course, Splinter Twin, best paired with Deceiver, Exarch, or Pestamite. But what's he up against with Watanabe here?
Yuuya Watanabe is on black-green Tron.
Yes, and we can see that already from the first play here, a power plant coming down for the Japanese superstar, ranked 11th in the world. But Paul, this isn't a good matchup for him.
Yeah, this is a really, really rough matchup for Yuuya Watanabe. Now, Tron really feasts on kind of the mid-range decks. We're talking about, Jund, Abzan, Death Shadow, those types of decks. That's really where Yuuya's deck excels. The matchups where the Tron decks actually struggles are these kind of more linear combo decks. And Antonio, not only does he have this angle of attack where he can play Through the Breach and get Emrakul onto the battlefield, knocking out all of those Tron lands, he's also playing 3 copies of Blood Moon in the main deck as well, which also, by the way, completely destroys the Tron deck.
This is rough stuff from whichever angle of attack you look at it here for Del Moral León, because, of course, not only does he have this great interaction with Blood Moon and what have you, and the combo finish, he's also got counterspells. He's also got Cryptic Commands. Remand, Spell Snare, perhaps not at the premium that they are against, a deck, say, like Storm, but still against something like Tron, they're going to do a lot of heavy lifting here, and he's not going to be bogged down with dead removal. Those lightning bolts are going straight at the dome if they need to, and Watanabe's got an uphill battle hill, Paul.
Yeah. Basically, Yuuya's hope is that Antonio's hand is just kind of full of all of those lightning bolts that really don't have any other targets. Except for the dome. So that's kind of what he's hoping for. But Antonio has a lot of ways to kind of look through his deck. Before, most of these blue decks would just play 4 copies of Serum Visions because that was basically the only game in town. Well, guess what? You now have access to 4 copies of Op. So there's more redundancy there that allows you to find that turn 3 Blood Moon or just find the missing piece, either Through the Breach or Emrakul, to kind of get that 1-2 punch.
That's right. And Opt also plays real nice with Snapcaster Mage. I mean, Serum Visions, obviously you could flash that back with old Snap, but doing it in the end step after having held up a Cryptic Command for the entire turn, that's big game, Paul. Yeah,
that's certainly the case with the Snapcaster Mage. Really excellent interaction when you're playing kind of a blue-based control deck with counter magic.
Slower start here for both of these two players. As you can see, Del Moral León has resolved a Serum Visions after fetching away for an island, and that's going to telegraph something very clearly to Watanabe here. When players are fetching out islands, or a lot of basics, Paul, you know that Blood Moon could be on the horizon.
Right, but this is an ideal start for Yuuya. He went turn 1 Chromatic Spear into turn 2 Sylvan Scrying. He has turn 3 Tron. So Antonio needs to have a remand here to stop that Karn that Yuuya can play on turn 3. This is exactly the type of draw Yuuya needs to actually be able to win this matchup.
And he has to be able to push it through here because Del Moral León is indeed holding the remand. You can see it there on your screen as part of his hand. But Yuuya Watanabe, he's playing around this masterfully, Paul. He's not slamming the turn 3 card. I mean, most Tron players, you get the Urza Tron lands out and you're just like, the 7 drop comes down on turn 3. Not so for Watanabe.
Yeah, this is Yuuya must recognize that Antonio very likely has a remand in this situation, but I don't know if it gets better for him as the game continues to go on. It looks like Yuuya's game plan, kind of seeing that the counter is on the table here, is going to basically try to get the 10th mana source, find an Urza's Tower here, and play an Ulamog on the following turn instead. So if Antonio does not have the turn 3 Blood Moon, Yuuya can punish Antonio and just get rid of 2 of the permanents on Antonio's side.
That's right, because the Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, doesn't need to resolve. It's it's a cast trigger. That means that if Watanabe can tap for 10 mana and slam this fellow, even onto the stack, he's going to eat up. He's a hungry boy. He's a hungry boy, Paul. You guys got a lot in common.
Oh, yeah. And this is actually going to be pretty rough. Antonio does not have a Blood Moon on turn 3, but he does have a singular copy of Vendilion Click. Does he have it in his hand right now?
We can have a look and see what's going on here from Dalmar León, and you see he is holding the 3/1 flash here creature, and this is a great piece of quite an it's an unusual effect having blue-red hand disruption and a pretty timely beater here. Watanabe's just got to eat it here to this 3/1.
Yeah, but he's not going to be happy to see Yuuya's hand, because not only does he have that Ulamog, he's also holding a copy of Karn as well. Karn, he's got multiple Karn Liberateds in hand, and he's got a Sanctum of Ugin, which you could also play. If he plays the Karn, triggers the Sanctum of Ugin, he can find another Ulamog if he wants.
Oh dear, I tell you what, when the waiter comes around, I'm going to have to order a nice big bowl of my own words here, Paul, because Yuuya Watanabe is actually in a much better position than many Tron players would be. Natural turn 3 Tron, many threats to deploy here against Dalmar León, who is, a decent start for him in terms of counter magic, filtering, what have you, and now a 3/1 as a threat. But Watanabe might be in a position to move a long way forward here.
Yeah, Yuuya, so Yuuya now has a couple of options here. He's almost certainly going to play a Karn. The question is, what is he going to do on top of that? Oh, but he has that Dismember. So I was wondering, is he going to play that Karn and get the Vendilion Click off the board? But now he can play the Karn and either get the Steam Vents that Antonio has in play, or look to tick it up and just make it so that the Karn is kind of out of bolt range.
And you see this Sanctum of Ugin immediately snapped off there. It's fetched out that Ulamog that was put at the bottom of the library. So Dalmar León here is in a world of pain. The Steam Vents has hit the bin. Oh, sorry, the Exile Zone. Thanks to that Karn Liberated. And I tell you what, this is not looking good for our Spanish hero, the hometown hero.
Yeah, and this is the reason why people don't like playing against the Tron decks. You even build a deck to specifically beat Tron, but if they're on the play and they get that Tron on turn 3, that's it. Game's over.
And just like that, Yuuya Watanabe very convincingly takes out game number 1, ladies and gentlemen, and he's joined by another Hall of Famer in John Finkel, who has got up against Reed Duke on the back tables. Team Ultra Pro Guard there, Team Ultimate Guard there, would have been very unhappy to see that nightmare pairing for their team on the back table. There you can see Duke and Finkel, but it is Finkel 1-0 against Duke, and it is, of course, Watanabe 1-0 against Dalmar León. We're going to go to a break, ladies and gentlemen, but stick around. More modern action coming your way live from Bilbao. Riley Knight and Paul Chen will be with you after this. We'll see you back here very soon.
Want to play in the next Pro Tour? Qualifiers are happening this weekend on Magic Online. For more information, visit mtgo.com.
Up your game with Ultra Pro Magic the Gathering accessories. Find the best Magic art on card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and more. Visit ultrapro.com to learn more and find a retailer near you.
And as a warm welcome back to live coverage of Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. You're in the booth with Riley Knight alongside me, Paul Cheon, and thank you very much for choosing to join us on this weekend. Certainly our pleasure to bring you live coverage of Modern from Bilbao in Spain. We're going to take a live look in now, Paul. We're going to check in with Corey Burkhardt and Radislaw.
Wait, Corey Burkhardt is on Grix's control? You don't say.
Oh, my goodness me. It's lucky that I've got my seatbelt on because I would have fallen out of my chair otherwise. He's up against Radislaw Kazmachik here, and Kazmachik is playing, Paul, essentially a carbon copy of Del Moral León's deck, but except instead of playing the Through the Breach into Emrakul combo, he's playing the Madcap Experiment into Platinum Empyrean combo.
Yeah, it's slightly different takes. As far as the spells go, it's almost card for card, actually. But instead of playing 4 copies of Through the Breach and Emrakul, yeah, he does have the Madcap Experiment to go with the Platinum Empyrean. And, you know, kind of the reason to play something like this over the Through the Breach is for, you know, kind of the more fair matchups. Like when you're playing against creature-based decks, you play the Platinum Empyrean because it's really, really hard as an aggressive deck to kind of deal with that.
Yeah, it's less of a combo-y finish. It can be a bit grindier, but I tell you what, when you line up these deck lists side by side, Kazmachik and Del Moral León, they are almost exact carbon copies outside of that that finish, if you like. They've still got the Abrade Blood Moon Lightning Bolt Through the Breach. They've still got all the blue permission and the card draw, and these decks are essentially different takes or a different flavor of the same archetype.
Yeah, but taking a look, this approach is really going to be punishing for Radic in this specific matchup because he's playing against Corey Burkhardt. He doesn't really care if a Platinum Empyrean is on the battlefield.
No.
Not only does he have multiple copies of Terminate, he's also running Kolaghan's Command, the full 4. So when you're playing that, you know, getting a Platinum Empyrean on the battlefield is really not all that impressive.
Yeah, it does real nice to his shatter, and it's going to be difficult for Corey Burkhardt to fall behind after casting cards like Kolaghan's Command. Burkhardt, a master of Grixis. He's played it for donkey's years, Paul, and I mean, in different configurations, true. He's played the Death Shadows version in recent times, but good to see him getting back to his roots.
Yeah, I talked to him and he was like, yeah, I basically locked it in 3 months ago and focused mostly on limited because he has played this deck. He knows the deck inside and out. He does have a few innovations that he's made to the deck, but, you know, at the end of the day, it still plays out very similarly.
This is a hallmark of the modern format, however. This is the hallmark of a format that rewards people who pick a deck, pick a team, really, and stick with it. You know, Blue-White has not enjoyed a lot of time in the sun, but all of these Celestial Colonnade players recently have come out of the woodwork because Control is viable again. You've got people who have played Tron decks for ages and ages. You know, you've got people who played Affinity for 10 years, and they just know the deck inside. They know it's stone cold.
Yeah, and that's the thing with these older formats. Just playing a deck, mastering that deck, because Modern is a very difficult format, there's a lot of different decks. Being able to just edge out tiny little percentage points in all these different matchups and knowing all the interactions, there's a lot of value there.
Dueling Snapcaster Majors right now for Kazmachik and Burkhardt. And as you say, Burkhardt has to be considered the favorite in this matchup, as we see a Cryptic Command dealing with the 2-1.
So Radic did get to resolve that Blood Moon, which is going to help out a lot because Corey did have a flipped Search for Azcanta. However, Corey has fetched all 3 basic islands in his deck, so he can cast Cryptic Command to get rid of that Blood Moon if he really wants to.
Yeah, and the Swamp as well. I mean, you know, Canny players are going to be all over this. They're going to see people aggressively fetching for islands. They're going to see people playing a lot of basics in red decks, and that alarm bells are going off straight away.
Yeah. And Corey's got access to that Cryptic Command, and he's just passing the turn, and just, you know, he's kind of in the driver's seat right now.
Kazmachik, he's going to slam this Madcap Experiment. Corey Burkhardt in a great position to respond, as you mentioned. And there it is from Burkhardt, the Cryptic Command. It looks like these guys are going to be at it for quite a while yet. Burkhardt probably does have what it takes to put the finishing touches on the matchup, although a second Madcap Experiment is going to resolve.
Yeah, but Corey drew Terminate off that Cryptic Command. So if he hits a Platinum Empyrean, it's not really going to do a whole lot. So again, this is just a really tough matchup for Radic. Imagine if that was instead the 1-2 combination of Through the Breach into Emrakul.
Yeah. Burkhardt would be in a world of pain. But as it is, it looks like Burkhardt will wrap things up. We're going to check back with these guys before very much longer, but right now we're holding the first table, so let's get back to Antonio Del Moral León, the Pro Tour champion, against Yuuya Watanabe, a Hall of Famer ranked 11th in the world, and up a game. Rather surprisingly, Paul, with Tron versus Blue-Red Control.
Yeah, I think at least in the game ones, the blue-red deck is a very large favorite. You know, you have access to the cheap interaction with the Remand, you're playing main deck Blood Moon, and then you have, of course, the Through the Breach combo along with the Emrakul, which can just wipe out all your opponent's Tron lands. But Yuuya Watanabe got that turn 3 Tron, and that was a big, big swing. Now, after sideboard, Yuuya does have access to a bit more defense. He's got access to multiple copies of Collective Brutality to fight through the counter magic. He's even got 3 copies of Thoughtseer along with Thought Nuts here. So he's got a lot of disruption that he can actually use to try to get that Blood Moon out of Antonio's hand or disrupt the combo.
He's even got a copy of Swamp to bring in against the Blood Moon to make sure that he's going to be able to resolve those black spells. The only problem is, and you highlighted this as we sat down to call this round, Paul, getting coloured sources for Tron players is a little more... I mean, they've got Sylvan Scrying, they've got an Expedition map, but that means that they're not fetching Tron lands, right?
Right. So if Yuuya doesn't have the answer for the Blood Moon, then maybe he does start searching out those basics. Because, there are instances, especially if you're playing against a deck that's not really putting on a lot of pressure, you can just beat Blood Moon, right? If you can just, use Thoughtseize to get rid of the Emrakul or get rid of that Through the Breach, you can just start hard casting your Oblivion Stones. You can start hard casting Wormcoil Engines. And those cards are also pretty difficult for the Breach deck to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, we look at a card like Blood Moon as being, just a stone cold hoser against any deck that's based on lands. And, in some cases, it certainly buys you an enormous amount of time, but it's a great point that you make. You've got to back up the Moon with pressure. There has to be a clock on your opponent or a way to end the game swiftly. Otherwise, they will eventually draw 7 lands and just can you own no natural.
Yeah. There have been plenty of instances where I've seen, a turn 3 Blood Moon, and it's like, well, they didn't kill me in time. So then I just played Oblivion Stone. I played Wormcoil Engine. I just got to a bunch of lands and still just cast a card for 7 mana. It didn't matter. Sylvan
Scrying here for Watanabe. You can see that Swamp has been brought in addition to the Forest here for Watanabe. As a Sylvan Scrying fetches out, looks like a power plant. No, sorry, a mine there. Bit of a minefield for us, Paul, here, having to recognise all the different arts and all the different formats that the Urza lands have been printed here.
This tells me Antonio likely kept the 1-lander, but he did find the 2nd land off the opt.
His 4th cantrip now. Del León churning through his deck,
there it is.
finding the pieces he needs, and he's just slapped it back on top here, Paul.
It's a Blood Moon. It's a Blood Moon.
He just knows. Oh, no. He's going to turn around. He's going to moon his opponent. He's going to have a terrible time.
Oh, but the Blood Moon's on top. Thoughtseize does not protect the top of your library. This is going to be big.
So here, Watanabe having a look at Del León's hand. We can too here and see what he's working with. Another copy of Serum Visions. It looks like Del León really leaning heavily on those 8 cantrips. Remand as well. And a Spell Snare. Surprising to see that post-board there, Paul. I mean, what is he looking to snag with that?
Basically, there's not a whole lot of targets, but it does allow you to get Sylvan Scrying, which is one of the more important cards for Yuuya Watanabe. And if you take a look at Antonio's deck, he does have a bunch of Lightning Bolts and even that Electrolyze that he really doesn't want in his main deck. And if you taking a look at his sideboard, he doesn't really have a whole lot of cards to bring in. So I guess Antonio realized that, you know what, instead of having these Lightning Bolts that do effectively nothing, I can try to keep some Spell Snares in to at least maybe try to snag that Sylvan Scrying.
Very important as well, after having won the first game on the draw, you want to be able to counter your opponent's 2-mana play. Spell Snare, I think, a card that, it's a bit of a sleeper. I mean, people, on the face of it, it doesn't seem to counter too much, but it does a lot of work.
Yeah, but it is just a hard counter for 1 mana. And there are a lot of different decks that do have a ton of 2-drops. I mean, one of the prime targets, for example, is Snapcaster Mage. If you expect to see a lot of blue mirrors, Spell Snare is very, very strong. Also, I think kind of at its best against decks like Affinity. Lots of 2-drops in that deck.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, a huge proportion of the modern field, it does cost 2, and that's why we see cards like Fatal Push at such a premium here. Another update from our back table. Reed Duke and John Finkel have wrapped things up at 1-1, all equal as they head into game number 3. I mean, again, we said, though, these two titans of the game, neither of them will be happy to be paired against each other. Only one of them is going to continue with an X-3 record here. It's rough stuff for both of them, but they'll be battling hard. And we might get a chance to check in with them later on, but right now, it's all about Tron versus Breach. And a surprising upset game 1 win for Watanabe has put him in a good position here. But, I mean, how is the texture of this game sort of panning out for you here, Paul? It looks like Watanabe does have the Tron lands available to him.
He does. And my guess is that, at this point, Antonio does see the 2 Tron lands on the battlefield. He can't afford to let Yuuya have a tower and Tron, so he's going to play this Blood Moon. But it is a little bit awkward. He's holding Cryptic Command in his hand, and he's very far away from actually casting it.
Yeah, I mean, right now he's been knocked down to basically one spell a turn with that lone island. He didn't have fetch lands. He had the awkward Sulphur Falls draw as well that led into the Blood Moon here. And, you know, what it does here, I think it's fair to say, is that it slows the game down an enormous amount because Watanabe's playing these huge 7, 8, 9, a million drops, whatever. And in this situation, it means that Delmar León has a bit of breathing space.
Yeah, he does. But if you take a look at Antonio's hand, it is not very good. It's not putting on a lot of pressure. He's got that Emerald Cold, but he's still 2 lands away from finding to, even if he finds through the breach, he needs to also draw 2 lands on top of that to actually cast it. So Yuuya has a lot of time here. He's still got 4 lands on the battlefield. He can find more lands with that Expedition map. He can cycle with the Chromatic Sphere, and he's even holding a Wormcoil Engine in hand. So if he can just manage to resolve that Wormcoil Engine, blue-red decks just generally have a very difficult time dealing with a resolved Wormcoil.
It's a great point. Wormcoil Engine is just beyond embarrassing against the white-based control decks of the format because Path to Exile or Condemn is such a tidy answer to the 6/6. But, I mean, blue-red has just got absolutely nothing on it. It's got nothing. It can't kill the 6/6. And even if it manages to by double bolting it, they've still got to deal with the 3/3s that stick around, Paul. It's a disaster.
Yeah, the best plan is basically to just counter it. And Yuuya Watanabe used his hand disruption spells to get that remand out of Antonio's hand. And he's super far away still from casting that Cryptic Command. Even if he draws an island, he cannot play it because of the Blood Moon on the battlefield.
Negate here for Delmar León would normally be a nice one, but once again, this Wormcoil Engine
is Wormcoil Engine time.
About to wreck Delmar León. And this has been a case study here, as we see Remand buy a little bit of time for Delmar León here at least. It's been a case study at how Tron players can overcome blue-based decks.
Yeah.
Delmar León's going to go digging now.
He needs to find blue sources, but even then, that Wormcoil Engine is going to resolve here. He does not find the blue source.
He needs a shatter. Oh dear. 7th land.
Now he has 7 lands. If he has a card in hand, he can just play that instead.
Oh, it's going to be Wormcoil Engine. Playing around days expertly there, Watanabe.
And I actually just don't think Antonio can win.
He's got to scoop him up. There we go. A very convincing and tidy victory for Yuuya Watanabe. I tell you what, I'm going to enjoy, as I said, a steamy bowl of my own words, because as we sat down, we expected this to be a rough matchup for Watanabe. He never looked to be in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, just like looking at Antonio's deck, it looks like it was custom made to try to beat Tron decks. And, you know, the Tron deck, you know, you can get those very powerful draws where you have the turn 3 Tron on the plate. It doesn't even matter what your opponents do. And then post-board games, you just have access to additional hand disruption, and you can just play a fair game.
I think that was really key. I think it was really key in this matchup, especially in the match that we just saw. The fact that Watanabe was able to leverage that hand disruption. It's not something we expect of Tron decks necessarily. The black is more for cards like Fatal Push, but it's been enormously impactful for Watanabe in this match. And I'm sure throughout the weekend, the fact that he can rip apart the hand, Collective Brutality against Burn, Thoughtseize against blue decks, it was a masterclass.
Yeah, and that's the thing with cards like Blood Moon. I really prefer it in decks that's really looking to just combo people out. And Antonio, because of the hand disruption that Yuuya brought in, it's much harder to kind of assemble that combo while also just like having that Blood Moon on the battlefield. So, I mean, you know, again, Blood Moon on the board wasn't enough because he wasn't able to find that through the breach for the Emrakul.
Turns out it's not the game-winning hoser that we might expect it out of red decks here. As we move back to our back table, Reed Duke, the second-ranked player in the world and all-around nice guy, versus John Finkel, the greatest of all time, it's fair to say. He's also on Tron, Paul, but he's just playing the straight green version here.
Oh, just straight mono green Tron.
Looks like it.
Very interesting.
Yep.
And this is a matchup that's traditionally very, very bad for Abzan, Jund, all the Thoughtseize decks, because it doesn't really have a lot of ways to interact with the Tron lands. So, you know, the Tron decks can really go over the top. The Abzan decks just generally don't put enough pressure on the decks to really prevent the Tron decks from going off. You know, if Reduke has cards like Fulminator Mage in the sideboard, that might help out a lot.
Dark Confident going to give Reed Duke a mild spanking here as he reveals a Thoughtseize to it. Of course, Dark Confident, the Bob Maher Invitational card, one of Reed Duke's favourite cards in Magic. We all know that. And to the surprise of no one, he did come hustling and bustling with green-black rock-style decks. He's playing white. He's playing Lingering Souls, a great pick in those mid-range mirrors. But as you mentioned, Paul, Reed Duke just doesn't have the tools to get over the top against a Tron deck here.
Yeah, so even look at this hand. John Finkel's hand is loaded. He's got all the threats he needs, but he does not have a way to get Tron. But, if he just draws a Sylvan Scrying off the top or an Expedition map, he's going to be firmly ahead in this game. So, and the thing is, the Tron deck just has a lot of redundancy. You have the Sylvan Scrying, you have the Expedition maps, and the Ancient Stirring. So any of those are good draws. Of course, you could also just draw Urza's Tower here as well.
That's also probably the most powerful play that we could see from the Hall of Fame here as Reed Duke slams down a Stony Silence. An all-star against Affinity, does a lot of work against Lantern Control, and has some utility against Tron decks. I mean, you have to board out all that dead removal, and this prevents those eggs, we call them, the Chromatic Stars, the Chromatic Spheres. That prevents them from being particularly useful.
Yeah, the Tron decks do play a lot of 1-mana cyclers. You have, of course, the stars and the spheres, along with the Expedition map. So, he has restricted Finkel from actually using Expedition map as basically a card that he could use to find the Tron lands, but Finkel still has access to those Sylvan Scryings and Ancient Stirrings that he could use to find that Urza's Tower.
Now, Duke is in a good position here with this Dark Confidant. Many games of Magic are decided by whether the Confidant lives or dies. Duke has already drawn multiple cards off of this 2-1 from Ravnica, and now following it up with a Tarmogoyf.
Here's the real clock.
And another Dark Confidant.
Here we go. Can Finkel find a Tron piece? No! An Oblivion Stone would have been good, but that Stony Silence is going to prevent him from actually using the ability.
And this is how you beat Tron. You need early pressure, and you need a lot of it. An Oblivion Stone here for John Finkel. But again, this is going to mean that Duke is going to be able to pile on some damage as we head towards... Finkel needs a way to find enough mana to deploy his threats. He's getting close, though.
This is huge. And this Tarmogoyf, it's looking like it's probably at least a 4-5 here, along with the 2 Dark Confidants, means John Finkel is on a 2-turn clock. So John Finkel is going to take... Let's see, what do we have here? We have Enchantment, Land, Sorcery, Instant.
And Artifact.
And Artifact. So it is a 5-6. So that's 9 damage. That's a 2-turn clock. So John Finkel next turn needs to find a way to get some of those creatures off the board or find a Tron land. So Reed Duke might be very ahead here. But with the single draw of a Tron land, John Finkel can come back here.
Abrupt Decay off the top here.
However, if Reed Duke has a Fulminator Mage, then that'll likely lock this game up. Does he have a Fulminator Mage? Let's take a look at Reed Duke's hand.
In hand, it looks like he's got double Liliana here in addition to the freshly drawn...
Oh, he does have a Fulminator Mage.
Oh, dear.
Oh, no.
Oh, dearie me.
Yeah. So he likely wants to play that Fulminator Mage and use it right away, as that will put a creature in the graveyard that would make the Tarmogoyf a little bit bigger.
3 mana.
Use that to get the power plant off the board. Means John Finkel cannot actually get Tron next turn to play his Ugin or Karn.
And it is going to be a Fulminator Mage, exactly as you drew it up here, Paul. Boosts the Tarmogoyf in for a huge whack of damage here is Reed Duke. And John Finkel on the ropes. It looks like this goat is about to be put out to pasture here because John Finkel is really struggling against Abzan. This is not something we expect at all.
What? Reed Duke does not want to lose to Tron, and he is packing Fulminator Mages in his sideboard, which really helps. And he drew his high-impact sideboard cards. He drew that Stony Silence to prevent the Oblivion Stone from going off. He drew that Fulminator Mage to get the Tron lane. And now he even has a Liliana, which he can use to get back that Fulminator Mage.
No.
Wow.
It's just all coming up Duke right now. The Dukes are up, and John Finkel has nothing left to do in this round other than extend his hand. Reed Duke tidily cleaning up. It has been a plethora of upsets so far, Paul.
Yeah, the favorites have all just lost.
Just gone down swinging, and poor old Finkel, I know fans of this, this absolute hard-hitting heavyweight of Magic history has gone down to 9-4. Not a great record as we head towards the top 8 now.
But I think Reed Duke's probably got a few fans as well.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot left to see here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. Now we're going to reset, head over to another table, bring you more of the very, very best of modern Magic right now, and we got a good old-fashioned burn deck here, Paul.
Yeah, good old-fashioned burn deck. A slight twist. This is a card that we really haven't seen in a lot of burn decks recently, but John Stern is playing burn with 3 copies of Vexing Devil in the main deck.
Vexing Devil, channeling that little inner kid, their little kid there.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, he's still just lava spiking his opponent. Trying to get him dead.
And also he's a 10-1, so we can't really throw too much shade at this guy.
No. I'm not saying that the burn deck is a bad deck, but I'm just...
No, Paul, I'll stop you there. That's me. I'm the one who's saying that.
Okay.
No, not at all. Burn has proven itself time and time again as one of the mainstays of the format. It is, of course, the fun police. It keeps decks honest, and it's a very, very necessary piece of the modern puzzle in that it prevents too much dirtling, too much silly nonsense from going on. You've got to respect the mountains. You've got to respect the Goblin Guides of the format.
Absolutely. And Pascal Viren here with his own take on blue-red. He's playing blue-red Pyromancer, but he's also playing multiple copies of Thing in the Ice as well. And Thing in the Ice really, kind of matches up nicely against the burn deck because most of the spells in the burn deck do damage in increments of 3. So it's able to kind of absorb one of those burn spells. However, Johnston does have that Monastery Swift Spear on the battlefield. It'll be interesting to see where he targets these burn spells.
It does mean that that Viren isn't going to be in a great position to block the Monastery Swift Spear. Of course, the Swift Spear can isn't worried by the 0/4, but it does make it cheaper for the Thing in the Ice to be removed. And we do have a score update from the back table as well. We saw Radek Kazmachek going up against Corey Burkhardt. And once again, I mean, we touted Grixis Control as being favoured against the blue-red Madcap Moon deck. But Kazmachek, once again, making me look like a fool, which isn't a particularly hard thing to do. And he has won it in 2 straight sets. Games going both his way.
Wow.
2-0 there.
That's impressive.
Very, very GG
right,
easy
so
for
we should
him.
just, whatever we think the favorite is, just predict the opposite now. I think that's the way to go.
So ultimately, it looked like Kazmachek's huge, overwhelming counterspell advantage was able to get him there, and he actually did manage to win with Through the Breach out of the board. So no surprising little victory there for Kazmachek.
He's basically got the Through the Breach combo, but that comes out of the sideboard.
That comes out of the sideboard.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's got all sorts of ways to slice and dice here, and he's got himself a straight sets victory against Corey Burkhardt, the Grixis Master. So congratulations to Kazmachek. We'll be checking in with him, Kazmachecking with him later on, I imagine. Right now, John Stern, Pascal Viren. John Stern at 10-1, looking to defend that record.
All
and
of the
look
burn
at
spells.
That. His hand is lit up on fire with those burn spells there.
Is he really going to go after this Thing in the Ice?
I think you got to do it.
Oh, no, never mind. The Monastery Swift Speeder was attacking.
All right. So the Swift Spear, this is going to give the Swift Spear juice her up a little bit as well.
Using the Lightning Bolt as well. So this is 9 damage.
That's a lot. It's a lot of damage, Paul. The prowess on Old Taylor Swift Spear there is going to mean that she is enormously juiced up.
Oh, but that was a big draw from Pascal Viren. Looks like he found a Dispel off the top, which is excellent because most of the burn spells in the burn deck are all instant speed.
Just blue mana, gain 3 life, essentially, is what that one says there.
Yeah.
But Stern, after having won a game, or split the 2 first games, I should say, with Viren here. And Viren undefeated. He's got 2 draws.
He is undefeated.
Still counts.
Yeah.
Still counts. Serum Visions now. Viren trying to sculpt that perfect hand to go up against John Stern, who is, of course, attempting to teach Pascal Viren a stern lesson in how to succeed in the modern format.
So this is the nice thing about playing something like a Thing in the Ice. It does allow you to kind of end the game. And he needs to do that sooner rather than later because John Stern can just draw a burn spell every single turn. And at some point, Pascal will likely run out of counterspells.
John Stern has been forced to really up the pressure as much as possible. 3 cards in hand for him is pretty huge. And he's actually had to keep Searing Blaze in his deck against a blue-red control deck. I mean, it's great against Pyromancer, I suppose.
It is. And it's also pretty good at dealing with Snapcaster Mage as well. And maybe he can get in an attack with a Goblin Guide. If Pascal plays a Thing in the Ice and blocks, he can fetch a land and use the Searing Blaze.
So Lightning Bolt targeting the Monastery Swift Spear, and that's going to give Pascal Viren a bit of breathing space here. Luckily for him, John Stern doesn't have 2 1-mana instants in hand. So away she goes now. And that's a little bit of a pressure valve here for the Belgian.
Right.
Down to 5 nonetheless. Helix you upstairs, says
Pascal's
Viren.
at 5. He's not going to go to 4. He's likely going to fetch a basic island here and cast Dispel. So now the Thing in the Ice is on 1. Pascal really wants to find a cheap cantrip effect here so we can flip that thing in the ice and really put pressure on John Stern because Pascal's sitting currently at 4 life.
He's going to need some further reach of his own, however, because 2 hits with the Awoken Horror is not going to do it. Hit him down to 14, down to 5, and he's got a bolt in hand. If he's got a way to double bolt Stern after having flipped that thing, that's the best way for him forward for him here.
Absolutely. And he's got that Serum Vision, so he will be able to flip that thing in the ice.
Serum Visions.
Here we go.
Horror awakens. And the 7-8 is ready to get it done here for Pascal Vieren, who draws a card off of the Visions. Down to 4, a very tenuous life total, certainly better than 3. That's we tend to think of it in multiples of 3.
Top.
Oh, and both on top. John Stern's got to be hating that.
Yeah, and despite Pascal being at 4, I think he's ahead here. He's got multiple counterspells in hand, and I believe he topped 2 Snapcaster Mages, which means he can use the Snapcaster Mages to get the Dispels out of the graveyard.
That should be enough here. Vieren may have the tools he needs. He's on 4. He's at a very, very tenuous life total, but Stern all of a sudden now is under the gun, and Stern is holding... Well, not quite blank skis, but it is a Searing Blaze in addition to that Arid Mesa we see played here. Puts Vieren to 1 life.
But now John has no cards in hand. He can just cast Mana Leak here if he wants. And Pascal's now sitting at 4 life, and John doesn't really have anything left because Pascal does have multiple counterspells here. He now has that Snapcaster Mage for the Dispel, so John doesn't really have any other draws unless he has an uncountable way to deal 4 points of damage.
In for 7. Stern down to 5. What a thrilling conclusion to this match of Modern we've seen here. Pascal Vieren once again defying the odds. The control deck going toe-to-toe with the burn deck here. Vieren can... Did he draw a Snapcaster Mage? He did.
He did. He topped, and I believe both of them were Snapcaster Mages, and he has that Dispel in his graveyard. Oh, and that Dispel in hand. So he's just sitting really well. He just does not want to sacrifice that Scalding Tarn on the battlefield.
Yeah.
4 is the magic number. Don't go to 3.
All he wants to do is make sure he stays above 3. But, I mean, Stern's in a world of hurt.
And John Stern here currently thinning out his deck because the only card he can draw here is a Boros Charm.
But even that...
To win. Or in his mind.
In his mind,
In his mind. But at this point, Pascal has locked it up as long as he remembers to cast the Dispel in his hand.
Assuming that he doesn't forget how the game of Magic works, Pascal Vieren should be able to wrap this one up. He's got double Dispel thanks to that Snapcaster Mage. Off the top, it's a Skull Crack. Not enough here, you would think. Pascal Vieren...
1 is not 0.
7-8 in for the win, and John Stern falls to 10-2 as Pascal Vieren continues this unbroken streak of victories and draws. Undefeated.
With 2 draws.
With 2 draws. Undefeated with 2 draws here for Pascal Vieren, and he's got to be a very happy chappy indeed. Paul Cheon here. What a round of Magic we've seen. All sorts of upsets. I mean, this is something that we really have to sort of zone in on and explore here. One of the most common criticisms of Modern is the lopsided nature of its matchups. The fact that, you know, sometimes you can't prepare for the enormously wide field that you're going to be set up against here. And what I think is really informative and instructive about the match that we've just seen as we welcome you back to the booth here, Paul, is that these matchups aren't, you know, they're winnable. You can put yourself in a position to win these unwinnable matchups.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're still playing Modern, right? And a lot of decks are just doing very powerful linear things. And sometimes you're just going to get turn 3 Tron.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're going to be able to just resolve that Blood Moon and hose your opponent. There are a lot of different angles of attack, and people can just get there. And these decks also just recognize the weaknesses that they have, and you can kind of shore up those weaknesses in the sideboard. Yuuya Watanabe boarded in basic Swamp and a ton of hand disruption to really help against those bad matchups.
Reed Duke brought in those Fulminator Mages, and they did a ton of work for him there. So definitely a lot of lessons to take away from this round here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. It's been a pleasure to have your company. We're going to go to a break right now, but we'll be back live from Bilbao before very much longer. Don't go anywhere.
Hello and welcome back to the News Desk. Maria Bartholdi, Rich Hagan, some results from the floor for you here. Ken Yukihiro from Japan, currently sitting at 10-2 after defeating Michael Lagamba. We've been kind of sharing his story this weekend, who won and qualified via a regional Pro Tour qualifier. Kim Stroh sitting at 10-2 over Javier Dominguez. Stroh playing Rich's favorite deck, Lantern Control. Marcel Carvalho sitting at 9-3 over Nathan Smith. Lu Chin Liu 10-2, and Tae Jun Hao, also in our feature draft pod this morning, currently sitting at 10-2.
More results coming in all the time. Jean-Emmanuel Depraz from France, the winner of Grand Prix Warsaw, is 10-2. Yuuya Watanabe up to 9-3. We saw that. Ranat Kacmarczyk from Poland is up to 10-2. But Piotr Glogowski, another Lantern player, he's down at 8-4 now. Probably that eliminates him from top 8. Plenty more results to come. But we've got someone down on the floor, Maria. Who have we got?
Yes, we've got Pascal Viren with Brian David Marshall down on the floor. Stay tuned, however, because if you're a Storm player, you're not going to want to miss a deck tech that Simon Gertzen has coming up.
Thanks, Maria. I'm here with Pascal Viren, second place at the World Magic Cup in 2016, and off to the best start in your, 10-year Pro Tour career?
Yeah, this is the best start. Like, I've been 10-2 once, but not undefeated after 12 rounds, so that's nice.
I have to tell you, early on in day one, you had 2 draws. We were worried for you.
Yeah, the draws aren't exactly ideal, but the control mirrors take forever because so little kill conditions and so many fetches and it takes a lot of time of the clock. But yeah, I think it's better than losing still, and as long as I don't lose, it's fine.
So 10-0-2, pacing the field right now, the only undefeated player. Talk to me a little bit about this blue-red deck, because there's a lot of different ways you can go with blue-red, and I think we think of that as a combo deck traditionally, the Splinter Twin decks that have done well and the Blue Moon decks that have done well, but you've gone in a different direction.
Yeah, basically I was testing with my brother, but there's like 3 different combos with the Kiki-Jiki combo, the Through the Breach combo, and the Madcap Experiment combo. But after some testing, we didn't like any of them, so we just tried 2 drops. We tried Splashing Green for Tarmogoyf first, but then Peter was thinking the ice is just why not? Is no one playing it? It's really good. And it actually makes sense, but it wins game, nothing else can. It's just a 7-8 for 2 mana. It's really good.
All right, so blue-red, you're 10-0-2. You're in great shape down the stretch here. Good luck the rest of the way. In the meantime, we've got another take on a blue-red deck in our deck tech at the wall, sending it back over there.